There are doors in life that wealth cannot open. Doors that remain sealed no matter how much influence, effort, or strategy is applied. And there are moments when a single word, spoken with alignment and reverence, carries more authority than gold. This teaching begins with that truth, that prosperity is not only something you accumulate, but something that recognizes you when you are in the right spiritual position. Before we continue, I invite you to subscribe to the Jewish Wisdom channel. This project exists to preserve, honor, and share ancient spiritual teachings that have guided generations through hardship, abundance, loss, and restoration. By subscribing, you are not just supporting a channel, you are becoming part of a living chain of wisdom that refuses to be forgotten. Now, write this simple phrase in the comments, not as a superstition, but as an intention. I walk with wisdom, and doors open for me. Let those words be your declaration as we move forward. There is a misconception that has shaped how many people pursue success. It is the belief that if you accumulate enough resources, enough knowledge, enough contacts, the world will eventually yield to you. But the ancient Hebrew tradition teaches something more subtle and far more powerful. There are thresholds in life that respond only to alignment, not force. You do not break them open. You are invited through them. The Torah does not present prosperity as a chase. It presents it as a consequence. Not of perfection, not of blind faith, but of order. The world itself, according to Genesis, was not created through haste or chaos, but through precise speech. Words were spoken, and reality arranged itself accordingly. This is not poetry, it is principle. In Hebrew thought, speech is not merely communication, speech is activation. The universe responds to vibration, intention, and alignment. This is why the sages were careful with language. This is why blessings are structured, deliberate, and never rushed. And this is why certain words were preserved, guarded, and transmitted only when the student was ready. The title of this message is not symbolic, it is literal. There exists a Hebrew word, ancient, compact, and deceptively simple, that carries the power to open doors money cannot close. Not because the word itself is magical, but because of what it aligns within the person who speaks it with understanding. But this word is not revealed to those who are impatient. In Jewish wisdom, revelation follows preparation. The vessel must be shaped before it can hold oil. The mind must be quiet before it can receive instruction. This is why this teaching unfolds slowly, not to withhold truth, but to protect it. Consider this. Many people pray for abundance, yet live in constant internal conflict. They ask for open paths while walking in resistance. They desire stability while feeding urgency. The Hebrew tradition would say, they are speaking blessings with a closed inner gate. The mouth moves, but the soul is not in agreement. True prosperity, according to the sages, begins when inner order is restored. When thought, speech, and action no longer contradict one another. When a person stops chasing outcomes and starts embodying readiness. The word we will explore later in this teaching is not used to demand. It is used to align. It does not force outcomes. It removes obstruction. And this distinction matters more than most people realize. Throughout Scripture, we see figures who did not pursue wealth, yet wealth pursued them. Abraham did not negotiate his abundance. Isaac prospered in famine. Joseph rose, not by ambition, but by consistency of character. These were not coincidences. They were manifestations of an inner state that invited external favor. There is a teaching in Jewish tradition that says, when the time is right, the door recognizes you, not the other way around. This is why some people work endlessly and remain unseen, while others step into rooms they did not build. The difference is not merit alone. It is alignment with timing, purpose, and spiritual order. As you listen to this message, do not ask, how can I use this to get more? Ask instead, what must I become so that what is meant for me no longer passes me by? That question changes everything. Because when your inner posture changes, reality rearranges itself around you. Conversations shift, opportunities surface, resistance dissolves without explanation. Not because you manipulated circumstances, but because you stopped standing in your own way. This is the foundation of what many call hidden prosperity in Jewish wisdom. It is not loud. It is not frantic. It does not beg. It flows quietly to those who are prepared to carry it without losing themselves. In the coming teachings, we will uncover the biblical root of this principle. We will explore how rabbis understood the relationship between speech and gates, between names and access, between humility and authority. And we will arrive, carefully and responsibly, at the Hebrew word itself, not as a charm, but as a key that works only when the hand holding it is steady. For now, let this settle within you. Prosperity is not delayed to punish you. Doors are not closed to mock you. Some thresholds simply wait for the right posture. And when that posture is found, what was once impossible opens quietly, without struggle, without noise, without force. Hold this truth as we continue. What is meant for you does not need to be chased. It needs to be aligned with. Let this be the beginning of that alignment. What you are about to receive now was never treated as common knowledge. Not because it was forbidden, but because it was powerful enough to require context, humility, and maturity. In Jewish tradition, revelation is not about information, it is about responsibility. A truth received without preparation can become distortion. That is why the sages always framed secrets inside stories, laws, and lived experience. The foundation of this teaching begins in the Torah, in a verse that many read but few truly hear. In Deuteronomy, it is written that the Eternal opens for you his good treasure, the heavens, to give rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hands. The original Hebrew does not describe this opening as random or emotional. The word used implies a deliberate unlocking a gate that responds to order. This is the first key. In Hebrew thought, heaven is not distant, it is responsive. The rain does not fall because someone begs loudly enough. It falls in its season. Timing, alignment, and readiness govern the flow. This same structure appears throughout the Tanakh. Gates open when something below matches something above. This is why Jacob dreamed of a ladder connecting heaven and earth. It was not a fantasy. It was a diagram. Rabbinical interpretation explains that blessings descend when there is correspondence between inner posture and outer action. When a person's words, intentions, and conduct are synchronized, the spiritual gates recognize that harmony, and recognition precedes access. Now we approach the heart of this teaching. There is a Hebrew word that appears quietly across Scripture, often translated into English so casually that its weight is lost. It is the word shalom. Most people reduce it to peace, but peace is the smallest surface meaning of shalom. In truth, shalom means wholeness, completion, order restored, nothing missing, nothing broken. In Jewish wisdom, shalom is not the absence of conflict, it is the presence of alignment. This is why shalom is used as both a greeting and a blessing. When a rabbi says shalom, he is not wishing you calm emotions. He is declaring that your inner world and outer world may come into coherence, that your life may function as it was designed to function. Here is what most people never learn. Shalom is a gate-opening word. The Talmud teaches that shalom is one of the names of God, not metaphorically, but functionally. It represents the state in which divine flow can move without obstruction. Where there is shalom, blessing is not forced, it is allowed. Money can open many doors, but it cannot restore order. It cannot repair fractured identity. It cannot align timing. And without alignment, wealth often becomes noise, anxiety, or loss. This is why Jewish tradition never treated prosperity as an isolated goal. It treated it as a byproduct of shalom. King David writes in the Psalms, "Seek shalom and pursue it." The Hebrew grammar is intentional. You seek it internally, and you pursue it externally. One without the other is incomplete. If you pursue success without inner shalom, you gain without peace. If you seek peace without action, you stagnate. Shalom requires both. Rabbinic teachings explain that when a person speaks shalom with intention, not as habit, but as alignment, it settles internal fragmentation. And when fragmentation settles, resistance in the external world begins to dissolve. This is not mystical exaggeration. It is observed reality. This is why righteous individuals throughout Scripture prospered even in hostile environments. Isaac sowed during famine and reaped abundance because he did not fight the conditions. He remained aligned. Joseph thrived in prison because his inner shalom was not dependent on circumstance. The gates recognized them because they were whole, even when surrounded by lack. Here is the secret most never hear. Doors do not open to desperation. They open to coherence. The Hebrew word shalom carries within it the idea of fitting together. When your life fits together, when your values, speech, and actions agree, you stop leaking energy. You stop contradicting yourself. And when contradiction ends, authority begins. This is why shalom opens doors money cannot close. Because it restores the inner authority that money can never purchase. The Zohar teaches that blessing flows through channels. When the channel is cracked, flow is interrupted. Shalom seals the cracks. It does not create abundance, it allows abundance to reach you intact. This is also why Jewish blessings often end with shalom, not as a polite ending, but as a spiritual seal. Without shalom, the blessing cannot settle. With it, even small blessings multiply. As this truth settles in you, understand this clearly: speaking shalom is not about repeating a word. It is about choosing wholeness over urgency, order over chaos, alignment over force. When spoken from that place, shalom becomes an internal command that reality responds to. In the next movement of this teaching, we will bring this principle into daily life, not as theory, but as lived practice. You will see how shalom reshapes decisions, finances, relationships, and timing, and how doors begin to open without being pushed. For now, let this revelation rest within you. Prosperity does not begin when you have more. It begins when you are whole. When a teaching is real, it does not remain in the realm of ideas. It descends into daily life. It enters choices, reactions, habits, and the quiet moments where no one is watching. In Jewish wisdom, truth that cannot be lived is not yet truth. It is theory waiting for embodiment. This is where shalom moves from concept to practice. Shalom begins in the inner dialogue. Long before doors close in the external world, they close inside the mind. Fragmented thoughts, competing intentions, unresolved guilt, constant urgency, these create internal noise. And noise disrupts clarity. The sages taught that when a person lives without inner order, even correct actions lose power. But when order is restored within, even simple actions carry weight. The first daily application of shalom is restraint. Not suppression, but discernment. To pause before reacting. To choose words that do not fracture relationships. To act without inner violence. This restraint is not weakness. In Hebrew thought, it is strength under governance. A person who cannot restrain themselves leaks authority. A person who can becomes trustworthy to carry more. This is why Jewish tradition emphasizes measured speech. Words spoken in haste create imbalance. Words spoken with awareness create pathways. When you begin your day with intentional speech, even a quiet whisper of shalom, you are not blessing the day emotionally. You are structuring it. The second application of shalom is consistency. Prosperity does not respond to intensity alone. It responds to reliability. The Torah repeatedly links blessing to faithfulness in small things. Shalom trains the soul to show up fully, not occasionally. When your effort is steady, heaven recognizes the rhythm. Many people sabotage abundance, not through failure, but through inconsistency. They begin aligned and drift into urgency. They start focused and scatter themselves. Shalom gathers the scattered self. It brings you back into coherence. The third application is alignment of desire. Jewish wisdom does not condemn desire. It refines it. When desire is chaotic, it pulls you in multiple directions. When desire is aligned, it becomes propulsion. Shalom clarifies what truly matters. So energy is no longer wasted chasing what cannot fulfill. This is where finances begin to change. Not because money becomes the focus, but because waste disappears. Decisions become cleaner. Relationships become healthier. Time is no longer traded for anxiety. Doors open because you are no longer divided. Now, write this phrase in the comments as an act of alignment, not performance. I choose wholeness, and my path becomes clear. Let that be a marker of intention. Shalom also reshapes how you handle obstacles. Instead of interpreting resistance as rejection, you learn to read it as instruction. Jewish wisdom teaches that obstacles are often misaligned doors, not closed destinies. When shalom governs you, frustration turns into discernment. You stop pushing against what resists and begin recognizing where flow already exists. This is not passivity, it is intelligence. In practical terms, this means fewer impulsive decisions, fewer emotional commitments, fewer entanglements that drain more than they give. Shalom teaches you to wait without stagnating, to act without rushing, to build without breaking yourself. And something subtle begins to happen. People respond differently to you. Conversations soften. Opportunities appear without force. Favor emerges quietly. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence carries coherence. Others feel it even if they cannot name it. This is one of the most overlooked truths in both ancient and modern teaching. Authority is felt before it is recognized. Shalom restores that authority. When Jesus spoke of peace that surpasses understanding, he was not introducing a foreign idea. He was echoing shalom, not as emotional calm, but as a governing state that protects the inner life. The peace that guards the heart and mind is the same peace that opens paths externally. Jewish and early Christian wisdom converge here. Inner order precedes external provision. As you apply shalom daily, do not look for dramatic signs. Look for quiet confirmations. Reduced anxiety, clearer decisions, timely encounters, a sense that you are no longer forcing life forward, but walking with it. This is how doors open without being pushed. Shalom does not shout. It does not rush. It does not compete. It simply aligns. And alignment attracts what struggle repels. Let this practice become embodied. Let it govern your speech, your timing, your choices. And watch how what once felt blocked begins to respond. Because when wholeness leads, provision follows. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when teaching stops being abstract and becomes personal, not dramatic, not loud. Personal, it usually arrives quietly, disguised as a memory, a loss, or a season where effort no longer produces the same results. Jewish wisdom never ignored these moments. It treated them as thresholds, places where something old must realign before something new can enter. The sages often told a story about a merchant who was known for his discipline, his integrity, and his generosity. For years, his work prospered, not excessively, but steadily. Then, without warning, his business slowed. Contracts fell through. Routes that were once open became complicated. Nothing catastrophic happened, but nothing flowed either. He prayed harder. He worked longer. Still, the doors remained stubbornly half-closed. One evening, exhausted and frustrated, he went to his teacher and asked what he was doing wrong. The teacher did not ask about his strategy. He did not ask about the market. He asked a single question: "Where have you lost your shalom?" The merchant did not understand at first, but as silence stretched between them, something surfaced. He realized that in his pursuit of maintaining what he had built, he had begun to live in fear of losing it. His speech had changed. His thoughts had tightened. His generosity had become cautious. Nothing sinful, nothing obvious, just subtle fragmentation. The teacher said nothing more. He simply nodded. Weeks later, the merchant made no dramatic changes. He did not abandon his work. He did not retreat from responsibility. He restored inner order. He corrected his speech. He released urgency. He acted from trust instead of pressure. And quietly, the same doors that resisted him began to open again, without negotiation. This story is not about business. It is about coherence. Most people assume that when things stop flowing, they must add more force. Jewish wisdom suggests the opposite. When flow stops, check alignment. Shalom is often lost, not through wrongdoing, but through internal division. Through living faster than the soul can agree with. This is why shalom is emotional as much as spiritual. It heals the fracture between who you are and how you are living. When those two begin to disagree, life reflects that tension back to you. If this resonates with you, write this honestly in the comments. I am ready to restore inner order. Not for others to see, for yourself to acknowledge. Transformation rarely begins with gaining something new. It begins with returning to what was lost. Clarity, trust, presence, alignment. Shalom brings you back to yourself before it brings anything to your hands. This is also where faith becomes practical. Faith, in Jewish and early Christian thought, was never blind optimism. It was disciplined trust. Acting responsibly without panic. Planning without obsession. Building without internal violence. This is the posture that heaven responds to. At this point in the teaching, everything converges. Speech, intention, action, timing, prosperity, all orbit the same center. Wholeness. When you are whole, you stop sending mixed signals into the world. And the world, in turn, responds with less resistance. This is the invitation of this message. Not to chase doors, but to become someone doors recognize. If this teaching is speaking to you, I want to gently invite you deeper. We have prepared the Jewish Wisdom eBook, a resource created to expand on these principles with depth, reverence, and practical guidance. And if this theme of alignment and provision resonates with you, there is also the Prosperity Judea Abundant eBook, designed to help you understand prosperity not as pressure, but as flow rooted in ancient wisdom. To access it, the link is in the description of this video. Take it as a continuation of what has already begun within you. Let this message close with a seal, not as a promise, but as a truth to carry. What is aligned does not beg. What is whole does not rush. What is meant for you opens quietly, steadily, and in its time. May shalom restore what was fragmented. May wisdom govern your steps. And may the doors that matter most recognize you when you arrive. There is a moment when a teaching completes its work. Not because everything has been said, but because the soul has been properly positioned. Jewish wisdom never rushes this moment. It honors it. Because endings are not closures, they are seals. And a seal is placed only when alignment has been restored. If you are still here, listening, reading, absorbing, it is not accidental. Ancient tradition teaches that attention itself is a form of consent. You do not stay with a teaching unless something inside you recognizes it as familiar, even if you cannot yet explain why. This is how remembrance works. Not as memory of information, but as memory of truth. Everything you have received until now revolves around a single axis. Wholeness before increase. Shalom before expansion. Alignment before access. This is why this final movement does not introduce something new. It deepens what has already been awakened. In Hebrew thought, the greatest danger to prosperity is not lack, it is fragmentation. When a person is divided internally, even blessings become heavy. They create pressure instead of peace. Responsibility without inner order becomes anxiety. Increase without shalom becomes fear of loss. This is why the sages were cautious with abundance. They taught that heaven measures not only what a person asks for, but what they can carry without breaking themselves. This is where many people unknowingly block their own doors. They desire overflow, but live in constant urgency. They ask for favor, but speak from fear. They want stability, but resist stillness. The gates do not respond to noise. They respond to coherence. Shalom is what teaches you how to carry more without becoming less. When your inner world is settled, money stops being emotional. Decisions stop being reactive. Success stops threatening your identity. This is when prosperity becomes sustainable, quiet, enduring. This is why Jewish wisdom does not glorify sudden elevation. It honors prepared elevation. The kind that does not require you to abandon your values, your health, or your peace to maintain it. Think about this carefully. How many people reach what they once prayed for and then lose themselves trying to keep it? The Torah does not celebrate that story. It celebrates the person who increases without collapsing inward. This is the deeper meaning behind the idea that this Hebrew word opens doors money cannot close. Money can grant access, but it cannot teach you how to remain whole once inside. Shalom does. It trains your nervous system, your speech, your expectations, and your timing. It teaches you when to act and when to wait. When to speak and when to remain silent. When to build and when to let something rest. This is wisdom, not superstition. And wisdom must be cultivated. This is why teachings like this were never delivered all at once. They were lived, revisited, questioned, and integrated over time. A person would study, then pause, apply, then return, reflect, then refine. The goal was never inspiration alone. The goal was transformation that could last generations. If you feel that this message has stirred something deeper than motivation, something steadier, quieter, more grounded, that is the sign that you are ready to go further responsibly. This is exactly why we created the Jewish Wisdom eBook. Not as a repetition of what you've heard here, but as an expansion. A place where these principles are unfolded slowly, with context, practice, and clarity. Where ancient teachings are explained without distortion, without exaggeration, and without pressure. Where prosperity is addressed not as a promise, but as a path rooted in spiritual maturity. And if this theme of provision, alignment, and sustainable abundance has resonated with you in a special way, we have also prepared the Prosperity Judea Abundant eBook. This resource was designed to help you understand how Jewish wisdom approaches wealth, work, timing, generosity, and growth, not through shortcuts, but through structure. If you are enjoying this theme, and you feel called to deepen it, the link to access the ebook is in the description of this video. Take it as a continuation, not an obligation. As a door that is open, waiting for you to decide if you are ready to walk through it with intention. Remember, wisdom does not chase you, it waits. Before we close, I want to leave you with something practical, but subtle. Not an instruction to perform, but an orientation to carry. Pay attention, over the next days, to where you feel rushed internally, where your thoughts fragment, where urgency replaces clarity. Those are not failures. They are indicators. Gentle signals showing you where shalom has not yet fully settled. Do not judge those places. Restore order there. Speak with awareness. Act with steadiness. Choose wholeness over speed. And notice how life begins to respond differently. Opportunities may not arrive loudly. They may come disguised as conversations, timing shifts, or unexpected ease where resistance once lived. This is how aligned doors open. without spectacle, without force. This teaching does not promise instant outcomes. It offers something far more valuable, stability that can hold increase when it comes. And now, let this be the seal placed gently on everything you have received. May your inner world become quiet enough to hear wisdom. May your actions become steady enough to earn trust. May your speech become aligned enough to open gates. May Shalom restore what urgency disrupted. And may the doors meant for you open, not because you pushed, but because you arrived whole. This is not the end. It is alignment.